call, we are going to be going over the new dashboards. So the dashboards are an option where you can take some of our custom reports or our data sets and actually turn them into a bar graph, a pie chart, or something similar to that. So we're going to go over a little bit of the setup, and then we'll go through how to actually set one up. Now, as with anything in the system, they are security-based. So not everyone will have access to every part of it, and not everyone will be able to see the dashboards. There's going to be dashboards tucked away in several of the apps that we have. So we have a creative dashboard. We will also have a sales dashboard. You have one for project manager. So throughout these different apps, you are going to see that there is a dashboard that is available for those apps. Now, again, not everyone can see everything, so it depends on what you give them access to. So to find the access, we're going to go into, you have your menu, and for those who have access to Admin Manager, it's going to be set up in your system setup. So once I'm in system setup, under security settings is ultimately where we can allow groups, so based off of security groups, who can access what. If you start typing in dashboard, you will be able to see there's a few different sections. So again, should they have access to the PM dashboards? Should they have access to billing and creative? And so this is where you would give them the right to actually view dashboards. And then the other part of it is whether they can go in and edit reports. So again, they are report-based. So there's two different rights. To view them, you have to be able to run custom reports. So this one has to be checked, and that gives them the right to actually go in and view the dashboards. And the other option is whether they can go in and edit the dashboards. So you'll see design custom reports here. So the two are run custom reports, and then I'll also design custom reports. So again, you can choose, should they just be able to view, and they would have a view only option, or should they be able to edit or create their own on the dashboards that they have access to. Within that, you also have to be able to see the certain security for the reports, the groups. So you have reports, and what are the actual groups that they can see, so the data sets, I should say. What are the data sets that they can see? So that would be part of it as well. So that kind of rounds out the security part of it, is whether they can view the dashboards and whether they can edit, or we call it design, the dashboards, and then which set of dashboards should they be able to access. So that's on the rights part of the dashboard. And again, if you guys have any questions, please use the chat because you are on mute. So I cannot hear anything that you guys say, but you can go ahead and use the chat to be able to have any questions that you might have throughout the call. Okay. So now, again, I'm going to go into some of the dashboards that we have. So depending on what your role is and what you have access to, we do have some that are already set up for you. So some of the options might be my billable time. So if whoever I'm signed in as, that would be what time is billable. I don't have any non-billable time, so this is not showing up. My hours by service year to date, my billable status, and then you have time per week. So these are some of what you might be able to see whenever you go in and actually view the dashboards. Again, there's pie charts, there's going to be bar graphs, there's line graphs. So a couple of different options on what to set up, but again, they're based off of our data sets. So if I have view only, I'm not going to see edit here. I can just see what's in here. And you can also set them to be able to filter. So right now, it's just running my billable time, but you can also allow them to do certain search criteria in here. This report isn't set up with any, but this is ultimately where you can go in and actually do that. So if I hover over some of these, it's going to give me a little bit of the detail. And so you can see how they actually go in and show the detail and what each number actually is. If you have the right to design custom reports, then you have an edit button, and this is where you can go in and actually change what you see. So what are the reports that I show here? How do they filter? How do they run? This edit button is what will give you the option to go in and do that. So you have the edit button. That's when you'll notice you can edit the current ones that we have. You can start new ones, or you can move them around. So if you have a particular order, or maybe my report is quite large, so I need a little bit bigger than this box that we're seeing here, you'll notice I have arrows to be able to resize them and move them however I want. Or again, I can completely change the position of each one of these reports. You also have the ability to go in and edit the actual reports that we have. So if I wanted to take a look at how we set this up, you have the edit button here. That'll bring open that side panel, and it's very similar if you guys are used to creating your own custom reports in the report center or the views that you have. It's going to be similarly set. So I have a layout, I have a filter section, and I have settings. Layout is where we're determining, is this a pie chart or a line graph or a bar graph? So this is where you're actually choosing the type. You also have what are the filters that we're going to be seeing. So right now we have service description. So that brought in the service. And then we also have the actual billable hours because we were pulling in my billable hours. And then it's going to go ahead and sum those. So when I refresh, if I changed any of it, it's showing, okay, this is what your chart would currently show if you left everything as is. So basically think of this as almost your columns. If we were talking on the report side, would be this is what would show. Now obviously you can't bring in 100 different columns like you could for a report because then again that would make this a little bit more complicated, but you at least have a couple of different options that you can bring in. Filters. So we said my billable hours. And so we're saying that the user has to be me, meaning whoever I'm signed in as. So that one's on the back end, meaning it's only going to run for whoever I am signed in as. You can add in additional options. So we don't have a date range here. We don't have a particular client. We don't have anything to really narrow this down in any other way except for who is running the report or who the report should run for. So then you can add in additional fields if you would like. And again, this is very similar to how the reports work. So what is the field that I want to be able to run? And you have a bunch of different options in here. You also have the ability to say, is this going to be a prompt? Meaning I had that filter option when we were looking at the report. So should I be able to filter it down a little bit further? Prompt will allow me to do that. If I don't leave it prompted, if I uncheck prompt, then it's just going to be a back-end filter where it'll run for whatever you choose in here every single time we go in and run that particular report. So basically, once we go into the dashboard page. The last option in here is the settings. So this is where we can name it. So we called it My Billable Time. So we have the title up here. This is the data set that we pulled from. So again, it's pulling from the report data sets. For time, of course, we were using time detailed data. We have a legend, so or you have the option of having a legend in there, and if so, where do you want it? Left, right, top, or bottom, or no legend at all. You also have the ability to give some sort of description in there. So it's a free typing field where you can enter in your description if you need one. You also have the ability to create different drop downs. So if I want different categories that I can have for different reports, if you start typing in a name, it'll go ahead and create that particular data set. And then you have a drop down of which name would this report fall under. You can also maximize how many items show. So again, depending on what I choose for my layout, do I want to have a pie chart that maybe has 100 different items, or do I limit it in any way? This is going to be the maximum item count. And then the last section within your settings would be who can actually view this. So again, if I go into Creative Today page or Creative Dashboard, who should be able to see the My Billable Time graph that we created? So these would be your security groups. You can choose to add in groups. You can also remove groups. Now, because this is a Creative Today, probably everyone should be able to see it, but you can use the trash can to remove people, or if the groups weren't already in there, you would plus button to add them in. So I'm seeing a few different questions, so I'm going to go ahead and address some of those. Where do you start to see these reports? So once I have these created, or some of the ones, again, we did put in some defaults that show in there. If I go to my menu, depending on which section I want to see, so we were in the creative section and we went to creative dashboards, that's where we are seeing the My Billable Time. We're seeing my hours year to date. There will be a recording of this, and then we will go ahead and send it out to you. Yes? If there are standard, do all have them, or we set them up? There are standards for each app, right? So Creatives had all of those as the default. The sales dashboard has some defaults, project manager. So each section will have at least one report in it. That is standard. How are calculated fields used in dashboards? Same way that they are used in the reports. So you don't have as many options in each type of graph as maybe you would for a regular report, but you'll notice that I do have calculated filters, and I also have the ability to say, do we calculate after it's run or something like that. So they'll work similarly. Again, not all of the functionality that you have for the regular reports will be an option, but there still is the option for calculated fields. All right. From Creative Dashboard my Creative Dashboard is completely empty. It doesn't even say home. Okay, so maybe just send that one in because it's a case by case. So go ahead and send that to support@workamajig.com, and we'll probably take that one offline. All right, so I think that's all of the questions that I see for now. So we'll go ahead and move on. Once you have set up your report based off of what you were looking for, then you go ahead and save. And then now it's giving you the option of going in and rearranging where those show, right? So I have a few different ones on here. If there's one I would prefer to see in a different location, then again, it'll say drag widget to any position. You're just clicking and dragging it wherever you want it to show, and then you can resize it. So I can have one on its own plane, I guess you can say. And then once you're done, you can go ahead and actually save. So this is what it would look like once I go into my Creative Dashboard page. So again, where we are is here, Creatives, and then you have Dashboard. So it's going to go ahead and run those reports based off of the information that you have. And then again, we had filter options. If you put in the ability to have filters, so the prompt option, that is where those would show. Okay. You can also print this out. One thing with the print is all the reports have to be showing. So if one's still kind of running to get all of the data, if I print it a bit early, so as soon as I get into this page, whatever you see on the page is what it will print out. So if I have a little jiggy face because it's trying to render the report, that is what it'll print if I print it at that moment. So just make sure that you go in and wait for all of the reports to render, and then you can go ahead and print. And then it'll bring up the print prompt, and then you can go ahead and actually print that out. Okay. So that would be what we have in the Creative Today page. And again, each section will have its own set. So on the sales side, it might be more opportunity or forecast information. Project manager would be more client-based, so hours by client, year-to-date hours by account manager, hours by service. So these, again, are some of the defaults because I didn't change any of these. These are the ones that we have defaulted in for you. So again, you can go in and change them. When you are changing these reports, if you have that ability, these are changing for everyone because it's a report that certain security groups have access to. So just keep that in mind. If you have edit rights and you change any of these, this is going to change it for everyone that has access to that particular report. Okay. I'm going to circle back to some of the questions that are coming in. A way to export these, not necessarily in like a CSV or Excel file. It's more of just if you want to go ahead and print, you're printing it here. But you have, of course, these data sets that you can create in the report center. So all the same data sets that you have in your dashboards, those are the same ones that you have in the report center. So if I go into report center, it's basically the same as starting a new custom report here. So these are the data sets that we're pulling and using to create those dashboards. So all of those same ones are going to be here. So maybe start the report in the report center first. Those are the ones that you can print to PDF, Excel, or CSV. And then you can mimic that report in the actual dashboards. How can you show what is just in production? So that's going to be on those filter options. So when I'm in the actual dashboards, just go into the ones that we were in. When we go in and edit, the filters are what we would use in order to say, so if this was a project report instead of time, I would say project status is equal to or any of. I don't know if it's an option in here. So, or we'll just do status. So if I said project status and I wanted it to run for specific reports, then I choose project status. And then if I say any of, then I can go ahead and say it's this one and this one and this one. And so you can go in and actually choose what are the filters that we use for that particular report. So that's how you can narrow it down, is anything in your filters. Otherwise, if I don't have any filters, it's going to run for absolutely everything. So for this one, it's time detail data. It'd report for every single time transaction that I have in my system. And then a couple of other questions that we have. In this walkthrough, you're demonstrating how I, as an admin, would set this up for other groups for their view only, or is this showing me as the individual, assuming I have access? It's both. So you can set it up for people. So again, if you don't want them to be able to set up their own or edit the reports, because again, if I'm giving them the ability to design custom reports, they can do that not only in the dashboards, but also in the report center. So maybe I don't want to give them that full access, but I want them to see the certain dashboard. So it's basically both. It's a how-to on how to actually create the dashboards and kind of what they're about. Can the reports be sent out as emails and repeat every week? Not the dashboards, but the custom reports are the ones that you can go in and actually schedule. Otherwise, these are something that you can come in at any time to your dashboard page. So again, if it's creative dashboard, you go to creatives and then creative dashboard, and then they'll run as soon as you go into those reports. Can we set up separate sections within the dashboard? Yes. So that was the option of tab name. So I'll go ahead and create one. We're just going to call it creative. And then I go ahead and save. You're going to notice that my option changed here. And so I have creative, which is the one that I just entered in, or home was the standard reports that we had. So just to create them, you're putting in on the tab name what you want the tab to be called. So these would be the tabs, and then it would give you the drop-down option on which ones you actually want to see. So again, tab name here, whatever I type in here, it would then create a new list on this creative dashboard page. Okay. Can you filter out specific tasks from a project? Yes, that would be in the filter. So if I say project task not equal to, then it would filter out specific tasks, or if you want to filter in for just a particular task name, kind of the same idea. In your filters, add in task name and then equal to or not equal to. Are you working to make the dashboard able to drill down to the data shown? Are you working to make the dashboard able to drill down to the data shown? I'm not sure I fully understand that one, but if I'm in here, I can hover over to see, well, I can see, yes, it's somewhere in the 80s, but if I hover over, it'll say 87. So I know the value for account manager actual work. So again, this one's my billable status year to date. So I know it's running for the year to date. I know that these are my services, right? So I see service description. So these are my services. And then what we did for this one is actual hours worked. So for each of these services, what was billable, how many hours did they work? So if I hover over, this one's 87, this one is 10. If I hover over there, 2.25. So that's where you can actually see the value in each of those options is if you hover over the particular field. And it'll do that for any of the fields, whether it's a line graph, a pie chart, something like that. Okay. Okay, so now let's go in and create one from scratch, because again, I showed you the ones that we have created for you guys. So a lot of these are the ones that we standardized, but to create your own, again, you're choosing where do I want this to show? And it does matter where you want it to show, because again, who has access to that particular dashboard set? So let's say I want to do something for project managers. And so again, I have the project manager dashboards. Here's the ones that we have in here. But if I said that I also want to be able to see maybe how many hours a particular client did just for a particular month. So yes, this one's year to date, but maybe I also want to know month to date or last month or something like that. Then I want to add that report to this particular section. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the edit button. That opens it up to where I can either edit the current ones, or I can click on the plus button to add in a new one. So for us, we're going to do a new one. Whatever data sets that I have access to will show in here, and it's going to group them by type. So contact management or project or billing, you have traffic, purchasing. So a lot of different data sets you have the option of seeing. But for my example, I want to use the time detailed data. So again, I want to know how many hours each client is doing maybe last month. So we'll come in and say, this is the data set that I want to use. And then I choose, how do I want it to show? So bar graph, line chart, pie graph, key metrics. I'm going to go ahead and choose the pie chart. And as soon as you click on each one, you're going to notice there's a few different options that you might have. So a bar graph gives the ability to do a series, which is kind of like another option of another layer within the actual graph. So again, for this one, I'm going to do a pie chart. And what do I want my fields to be? So again, you have the drop down and you can just click on this. Otherwise, you can start typing in to narrow down the results. So maybe I want to know by client name and then actual hours worked. And I want it to sum. And when I refresh the graph, it'll go ahead and give me an option to see, based off of what I have entered so far, what would it look like. Go into my filters and determine what do I want to filter by. So again, I mentioned that this one would be like a month, last month report. So date worked is maybe what I want to bring in. And you have a bunch of different options in your conditions. But again, for the date ranges, you have all kinds of different options: month to date, this month, next month, last month, year to date. So we'll go ahead and do last month, and it's not going to be a prompt because I want that to run on the back end. But also, maybe I want to know, you know, another option in here. You can go ahead and kind of peruse through and determine, what do I want to see? So maybe I run this for a particular client. Now, it's not going to be usual, but you can go in and do that. So you can create as many filters as you would like. And then on the settings, what do I want to call this? So again, I'm going to do hours, month to, or last month is what it was. Month by client. So I want to create a legend in here. I'm just going to say no for now. Report description. Do I want it to show on a particular tab? So right now I don't have the hamburger, right? So the 3 lines to show if there's different sets or series that I want to show. But if I do, I create it here. So we'll call this client real estate. And then, do I want a maximum count? Because again, this is a pie chart, so obviously I don't want 100 different lines in here. Maybe I keep it at a particular maximum. You can either use the 12, or you can edit this to maybe be a different number that you might have in mind. And do I want everyone to be able to see this? If so, great. It already has all of my security groups. Otherwise, I can remove particular groups in here if I need to. So I'm going to take a look at some of the questions that we have. So creating or doing an additional webinar on creating reports. If I can go ahead and write that down. We're taking a look at what are the common webinars that people want to see, so I can go ahead and mention that. Is it possible to do a dashboard with monthly sales by client, margins by client? Again, these aren't going to be super detailed, but you can get pretty close to that. So, you know, obviously that one would be in the sales section, and you'd be pulling from more sales reports than right now we're doing time detail data. Is there a place where we can see a complete list of all the report options that can be used on these dashboards? Yes and no. So it's, again, just pulling from the report center. So whatever I have for data sets in here, so if I just do a new custom report, these are all the data sets that you would have options of going in and building. Now, again, it's not going to be absolutely every option that we have in here, because again, you know, it's going to be fairly limited. You can't have an x-axis and a y-axis and then, you know, a bunch of other axes. So yes and no, these are the report data sets that you can use. And we are recording this, so yes, we'll go ahead and send out the recording once it's done. Next question is, have the custom dashboards been released in the new update? Our current team is not seeing new dashboard, so that could be a right. So if you're not an admin, go in and have the admin check to see what are the security groups that have access to them. So under your menu, admin, and system setup, you have security settings here. And again, some of the options would be, do they have the option of running custom reports? That was one of the ones that you have to have. And then also, if I type in dashboards, you then have to give them visibility to, do they see the PM dashboard? Do they see the billing dashboard, creative dashboard? So here's where a lot of the dashboard sections would come from. Does the report description show, does the report description text show on the dashboard? Yes. So we'll go ahead and put in, oops. So save. Which one did I do that under? I think it was this one. I think it's more on the back end that it would show. Where does the report description show? I think we just covered that one. A reporting webinar. go ahead and put that one in. Will you be able to launch the related report from the dashboard chart to see the detail? Not sure if you can expand on that one. That one would be great. Do you have a resource manager standard dashboard created? Yes, there's already some standards set in there. Under PM, what is the difference between dashboard and new PM dashboard? So before we had the ability to create these charts, we had something called dashboards. The first one I think we created was the sales dashboard. It was kind of similar to what we were going for now. It's just a way to display some of the information a little bit different. So this was going to be the sales dashboard, and then we created new sales dashboard. It's kind of the same thing with project manager. We had a set dashboard, which was some of these options. Clients liked this, so then they said, hey, it'd be cool if we could do our own. So then we created the other dashboards. We will be renaming the dashboards that we're talking about today to charts. So in the future, you'll see charts instead of new PM dashboard. Okay. All right, so I think that's all the questions that I can see for now. So let's go back into our project manager report that we were creating. And I did month to date, so I think it didn't save, but that's okay. So we'll add in the new one. We were talking time detail data. There's going to be a pie chart. Client name. Okay. So then the last option in here would have been the settings again. And so we were going to do client. Okay, so we'll go ahead and save. And then save. So then we would be able to see that one here. So here's my data that I added in. And then again, if I hover over the fields, I'd be able to see what are the actual hours that we entered in. So not just seeing who has a bigger piece of the pie, but what are the actual hours that they had. So again, this only shows up when we created the field of where does this show. So I created a client-related option in there. So if I go under there, there was my other report that I had created. If you hover over the hint, this is where the description is. So that's where it'll come in, is you have that question mark there. That's where we put the report description. So that's where it would show if you do put in the report description. If you don't, then it just shows like these ones do, no question mark next to it. Okay. Another option in here, again, so that was the pie chart. And again, each report type is going to be a little bit different. So if I did kind of the same thing using the same data set, we'll just type it in. Series, again, was like a third layer of being able to add in additional data. So we'll leave this one as a bar graph. And I'm going to use the same criteria, client name, and then the actual hours. And then the series might be maybe account manager. So who's the account manager that's responsible for that? So it's, again, kind of like a third layer that I'm adding into here. And how do I want to sort it? Meaning, do I want to sort it by the client name? Typically, it would be alphabetical order if we did that. Or do I want to go by my Y, which was actual hours worked, so it can show either low to high or high to low, and my sort direction is where that would be determined. So if I come in here and do that, this would be what I have so far. So not in alphabetical order. It would show, what hours we have in there. And then again, what are my filters? So again, if I don't put any filters in there, it's going to run for absolutely everything, and that can take a little bit. So typically you do want to give some sort of filter in there. So again, date range would be probably most popular, but you can use worked month instead of just date worked or date worked week. So a lot of different options in here, but you can go ahead and choose what you want to use for that. So maybe we'll do year to date. And then for this report, what do I want it to show? So I'm just going to call this one the pie chart for actual. And this was year to date. Oops. Okay, so then we'll go ahead and, I guess a couple of other options again. So depending on the type of chart, if there's a particular target that you want to show, you have an upper and a lower, what it'll do is basically add in a line. So if I have a projected actual hours, and for actual hours you probably wouldn't, but maybe allocated hours or something like that, but I'll enter something in here so that you can see what it would do if we have something. So actually that's backwards. So we'll do 10. And my lower would be 5 hours. And you can relabel. So right now, it'll just use the labels that we have. So I did actual hours worked. I also did client name. If I want to relabel it, this is where we can go in and put what the label is for each of the axes that we have. So we'll go ahead and save. And then if I scroll down, here was the new one that we created. So then here's the, see the little red lines. I had a lower and an upper target. So those are where those lines come into play. If you only do a lower, then obviously only one of those lines would show. If I do both, then I can see both. Okay. Let me take a look at some of the questions that we have. Will the description print when you print the report? That's a good question. I'm actually not sure. So this one has one. I don't think it would because it's basically just printing what's on screen. And my printer's not working, but usually whatever's on screen is what you would be able to see. So likely that's not going to print out. Where do these data sets pull from? How can our team create more? So again, that's going to be when you do your report center and you have the ability to create custom reports, that is where those are pulling from. Are there any plans to add a table block that can include multiple columns, just like the view? No, we're trying to keep these a little bit more simple. I mean, we might look into it in the future. So if you want to send that into support@workamajig.com, we'll take a look at the requests that we're getting in. Because again, this is a little bit newer. So as people are using it more, we're taking a look at the feedback. So go ahead and send that in if you have a good idea for any of the reports that we have. How do we fix the title that is cut off? That may be one that you send into support. I'd probably have to see what you're talking about. If it's really long, you might just need to expand out your grid. So, you can resize, make it bigger or smaller. So maybe that's part of the issue. Can you give us some example of items best tracked through dashboards versus reports? So kind of a complicated question, but really it's what do you want to see where it would make sense to see more visuals, right? So, a lot of times it's more of the basic data of year-to-date hours by client. This gives me an idea of, per year to date, what are the roles that we're seeing most often. So again, these are my services and here's my companies. So, who's using up most of the hours. So I don't need a ton of detail in here. So this would be a good option for doing as a dashboard. But if I want to see a lot more layers within here, then that's probably when I would do a report versus a dashboard. But again, you can create it as both, but on the report side, you obviously have a little bit more functionality than you would on a dashboard. I think I'm caught up with all the questions. Okay. All right, so with that, that's kind of the gist of the dashboards. We do have help guide articles. It basically explains what we've gone over, but if you do forget kind of what we've gone over, you do have the help guide articles. If you type in dashboard, it'll bring those up and you'd be able to see some of the basic detail that we added in there. So my suggestion is determine what are the groups that should be able to view these and which ones should they be able to view. You should be able to see them now if you are an admin. If not, have your admin enable them, or have them take a look and determine what are the ones that each group, so security group, should be able to see, and then have them turn those on, because by default we didn't really turn them on for everyone. So it may be something that you go through your security rights and see and determine who should be able to view. So again, there's a view only, otherwise there's the ability to edit, but if you give them the rights to edit, they can edit them for everyone. Okay. Any last questions before I let you guys go? Okay, so then again, if you do want, if you're creating these and you have some specific questions, feel free to send them into support@workamajig.com. Your account manager will be able to handle those. If you're unable to get something to happen, but you're needing it, let us know what you're looking for, how it would run, or if you have the actual report created rather than the dashboard, let us take a look and then we can see. Because again, we can see what else we can add if it doesn't currently do something. But again, it won't be as robust as our report center. So just let us know what you guys have as far as suggestions, because obviously it's newer, so we're willing to take a look at those suggestions that you have. Okay. All right, guys, well, I hope you have a wonderful day. And again, I will go ahead and submit that you guys are looking for a reports webinar, so I'll go ahead and pitch that over and then we'll see what we can do. But take a look at the next ones that we have, because we'll be continuing to do these webinars. All right, have a great day.